You know how it is. You walk into a new job and plastered on the wall are the company values: innovation, integrity, teamwork. But give it a few weeks and you start to figure out there's a different set of rules, the real rules that everyone actually follows. So what gives? Well, on one side, you have those official, espoused values. The company might say, we value fearless innovation. But on the other side, you've got the unwritten rules of the road. The stuff you learn by watching, like, hey, whatever you do, don't bring up a new idea in the weekly meeting. The boss will just shut it down. And that gap, right there, that's where the real company culture lives. Okay, so let's get into it. If the posters on the wall aren't making the culture, then what is? Where do these super powerful, unwritten rules actually come from? The answer might surprise you. It's got nothing to do with big speeches and everything to do with small, consistent, everyday actions. So, in this explainer, we're going to decode how a leader's true values get broadcast to their team. We'll start with where those unwritten rules come from. Then, we'll dig into 3 huge signals leaders send every single day: what they focus on, how they react under pressure, and how they actually model behavior. And finally, we'll wrap it all up to help you understand your own leadership broadcast. All right, first up, let's pull back the curtain and look at the source code of a company's culture. And I'll give you a hint. It's not in the employee handbook. It's way more fundamental than that. Here's the absolute key. Culture isn't what a leader says, it's what they do, over and over again. A leader's daily, observable actions are the most powerful culture-shaping tools they have. There's even a name for this stuff. Organizational theorist Edgar Schein calls these embedding mechanisms. It's basically how a leader's personal beliefs and gut feelings get wired into the DNA of the team. And the first, and honestly the most critical of these mechanisms, is all about where a leader points their focus. You should think of a leader's attention as the most valuable currency in the entire organization. Where they choose to spend it tells you everything about what really matters. So what leaders consistently pay attention to, what they measure, what they try to control, that's what communicates their real priorities. And we're not just talking about formal reports or quarterly metrics. No, it's the casual questions they ask in the hallway, the topics they keep bringing up in meetings, the little details they seem to notice that no one else does. These small acts of attention are huge signals that tell everyone else what the boss actually cares about. Here's a perfect story about this. Ken Olsen, the founder of Digital Equipment Corporation, was in a meeting and found out his managers were, let's say, exaggerating their sales orders. And he didn't just get annoyed, he became absolutely enraged. He stood up and declared that lying about orders would get you fired on the spot. The sheer intensity of his emotional reaction sent a message that was impossible to misunderstand. This wasn't just about bad data. For him, it was a deep violation of how a business should be run. Honesty, truth, directness, those were totally non-negotiable. And in that one moment, the entire team learned what was truly a fireable offense. And what's just as telling is the other side of that coin. At that same company, if a manager had cost overruns or scheduled delays, Olsen barely said a word, as long as they were building a fantastic product. The signal there? Product excellence and innovation mattered way, way more than hitting every single budget number on the dot. Okay, let's move to our second mechanism. A leader's attention is a constant daily signal, for sure. But how they react in a crisis, in a high-stakes moment, that can define the culture for years. These are the moments when the mask comes off and you see what someone really believes. So get this, there's this story about a bank president. He was always telling his team he wanted them to be more assertive, to think for themselves, to take more initiative. That was the value he said he wanted. But then came the moment of truth. During a huge staff meeting, one of his subordinates actually took a risk. He tried to be assertive, but he made a couple of silly mistakes in his presentation. And the president's gut reaction? He laughed. And he ridiculed the guy right there in front of everyone. And just like that, boom, the damage was done. It didn't matter if he apologized later. His authentic, spontaneous reaction broadcast the real rule loud and clear to everyone watching. Don't you dare stick your neck out, because the boss still thinks he knows best and he will make you pay if you fail. A single reaction created a whole new reality that just crushed his stated goal. Which brings us to our third big embedding mechanism. Because beyond just paying attention and reacting, leaders are constantly teaching. I mean, whether they intend to or not, They are always modeling how we do things around here. This really happens in 3 key ways. First is deliberate role modeling, just how they act. Second is active teaching, the stuff they actually explain. And third is consistent coaching, who they praise and who they correct. A fantastic example of this is Sam Steinberg, who founded a grocery chain. He didn't just give speeches about quality, he lived it. He would constantly show up at his stores, unannounced, inspect every little detail, and ask his managers these incredibly specific questions. By doing that, he was teaching them his own deeply held definition of what excellence looked like, and it was way more powerful than any memo he could have ever sent. So let's bring all these ideas together, because these mechanisms don't work in a vacuum, right? They all combine to form this constant, powerful broadcast that tells your team what you truly believe in and what you really value. Think about it like this. Your daily leadership broadcast is basically a mix of 3 main channels. Channel 1 is what you consistently pay attention to. Channel 2 is how you react when the pressure's on. And Channel 3 is how you personally model behavior, how you teach, and how you coach your team. And here's why this is so critical. Your team members, especially the new hires, are expert decoders. They are constantly watching this broadcast, looking for patterns, trying to figure out how to survive and how to succeed. They're not reading the posters on the wall. They're decoding your actions to understand what is truly valued around here. So at the end of the day, it's actually pretty simple. The values written in a handbook don't matter nearly as much as the values you live out loud every single day. Your actions are your loudest message. So the only real question left is, what are you broadcasting?